right, welcome back. So, yesterday we started our book and we learned about Avery, the brother, and Fern, and Mr. and Mrs. Arabelle, Avery and Fern's mom and dad. And we also know that Fern saved this little pig, this runt pig, from being kind of killed, right? Because the Arabelles thought it's not going to make it, so they're going to kind of put it out of its misery. So, and do you remember what Fern decided to name the pig? She said it so dreamily. Wilbur. So let's join as we read chapter 2, Wilbur. Fern loved Wilbur more than anything. She loved to stroke him, to feed him, to put him to bed. Every morning as soon as she got up, she warmed his milk, tied his bib on, and held the bottle for him. Every afternoon, when the school bus stopped in front of her house, she jumped out and ran to the kitchen to fix another bottle for him. She fed him again at supper time, and again just before going to bed. Mrs. Arabelle gave him a feeding around noontime each day, when Fern was away in school. Wilbur loved his milk, and he was never happier than when Fern was warming up a bottle for him. He would stand and gaze up at her with adoring eyes. For the first few days of his life, Wilbur was allowed to live in a box near the stove in the kitchen. Then, when Mrs. Arabelle complained, he was moved to a bigger box in the woodshed. At 2 weeks of age, he was moved outdoors. It was apple blossom time, and the days were getting warmer. Mr. Arabelle fixed a small yard, specially for Wilbur, under an apple tree, and gave him a large wooden box full of straw with a doorway cut in it so he could walk in and out as he pleased. "Won't he be cold at night?" asked Fern. "No," said her father. "You watch and see what he does." Carrying a bottle of milk, Fern sat down under the apple tree inside the yard. Wilbur ran to her, and she held the bottle for him while he sucked. When he had finished the last drop, he grunted and walked sleepily into the box. Fern peered through the door. Wilbur was poking the straw with his snout. In a short time, he had dug a tunnel in the straw. He crawled into the tunnel and disappeared from sight, completely covered with straw. Fern was enchanted. It relieved her mind to know that her baby would sleep covered up and would stay warm. Every morning after breakfast, Wilbur walked out to the road with Fern and waited for her till the bus came. She would wave goodbye to him, and he would stand and watch the bus until it vanished around a turn. While Fern was in school, Wilbur was shut up inside his yard. But as soon as she got home in the afternoon, she would take him out, and he would follow her around the place. While Fern was in school, Wilbur was shut up inside his yard. But as soon as she got home in the afternoon, she would take him out and he would follow her around the place. If she went into the house, Wilbur went too. If she went upstairs, Wilbur would wait at the bottom step until she came down again. If she took her doll for a walk in the dog carriage, Wilbur followed along. Sometimes on these journeys, Wilbur would get tired, and Fern would pick him up and put him in the carriage alongside the doll. He liked this. And if he was very tired, he would close his eyes and go to sleep under the doll's blanket. He looked cute when his eyes were closed because his lashes were so long. The doll would close her eyes too, and Fern would wheel the carriage very slowly and smoothly so as not to wake her infants. One warm afternoon, Fern and Avery put on bathing suits and went down to the brook for a swim. Wilbur tagged along at Fern's heels. When she waded into the brook, Wilbur waded in with her. He found the water quite cool, too cold for his liking. So while the children swam and played and splashed water at each other, Wilbur amused himself in the mud along the edge of the brook, where it was warm and moist and delightfully sticky and oozy. Every day was a happy day, and every night was peaceful. Wilbur was what farmers call a spring pig, which simply means he was born in the springtime. When he was 5 weeks old, Mr. Arabelle said he was now big enough to sell, and would have to be sold. Fern broke down and wept, but her father was firm about it. Wilbur's appetite had increased. He was beginning to eat scraps of food in addition to milk. Mr. Arabelle was not willing to provide for him any longer. He had already sold Wilbur's 10 brothers and sisters. "He's got to go, Fern." Sorry. "You have had your fun raising a baby pig, but Wilbur's not a baby any longer. and he has got to be sold. Call up the Zuckermans, suggested Mr. Zarabel to Fern. Your Uncle Homer sometimes raises a pig, and if Wilbur goes to live there, you can walk down the road and visit him as often as you like. How much money should I ask for him? Fern wanted to know. Well, said her father, he's a runt. Tell your Uncle Homer you got a pig you'll sell for $6 and see what he says. It was soon arranged. Fern phoned and got her Aunt Edith, and her Aunt Edith hollered for Uncle Homer, and Uncle Homer came in from the barn and talked to Fern. When he heard that the price was only $6, he said he would buy the pig. Next day, Wilbur was taken from his home under the apple tree and went to live in a manure pile in the cellar of the Zuckerman's barn. All right, I've got some questions for you. Okay? So we read a lot of information in this chapter. What time of year are we in right now? Like, what season is it? Did you catch those clues in there? I'll give you a hint on page. Where did it go? I just lost it, of course. On page 11 on the bottom at the start of page 12. That's right, that's where it was. They talk about what kind of a pig Wilbur is. That gives us a good idea about what time of year it might be right now. So, it's kind of like late spring or almost early summer. We know that also because it says Wilbur was born in the spring, and he's 5 weeks old now, so almost 2 months have passed, and the weather's starting to warm up. Avery and Fern went swimming in the brook. So we know that we're kind of coming towards like the start of summer, the end of spring. So think back to what we talked about yesterday with what we knew about Fern. We knew she was like kind and caring. Were we right? Did she show signs of that in this chapter? Let's see if we can find one example that shows that Fern is that kind and caring person. I'm thinking about how when she went for walks with her doll and Wilbur, how she would walk the carriage so slowly so that she didn't wake her infants. She was very careful to not go over bumps because she really cared about them and wanted them to rest. Last question for today. Do you think that Wilbur wants to be sold? I don't know. I think he's going to have a hard time with it because he follows Fern everywhere, right? And sits and waits for her to get back. That's all he does. He wants to sit and wait. So we'll have to see next time if Wilbur does like being sold. I kind of think Fern's not going to like it either. But can she really do much about it? Nope, she's kind of making the best of it. All right, make sure you do your questions on Google Classroom. Also, let me know if you have any questions. Bye.